Aloha, this is Sage from the Food Forest Folks, and this is part 1 of 3 of a workshop that we taught about planting and growing food in upcountry Puna. Though it's specific to Puna, the principles in this video can also be applied to other excessively rainy parts of the world. In this video, we'll be talking about black cinder versus red cinder, soil drainage, plant placement, soil pH, and more. So I hope you enjoy it. We're the Food Forest Folks, and we own and operate a landscaping nursery company. Our specialty is Puna, but we do work all over the island. We're doing a workshop today, but focusing on how to plant fruit trees and care for them in high elevation Puna, because we have a different growing environment up here than even 1,000 feet down, as we all know. So we're going to be planting 2 different trees, and then we'll be going into some of the soil science behind why we do the things we do. And we'll be doing that as we're planting the trees, so that way it'll be more hands-on and you'll be seeing the knowledge applied. We're going to be going into the duck pen. That's where we are planting 2 different trees in both of the duck pens. So just watch your step.
Ready when you are.
Thanks for the teamwork on that, you guys. I appreciate it. So what we're doing is we have selected this spot because it is a little higher. As you guys know, the kind of lava that we are planting on is super important. The kind of lava we have up here is unfortunately the worst kind for growing food. It's the pahoehoe, where it acts like a bedrock and there's not usually too many cracks. Super unfortunate. What that means is that you need to keep your trees shorter because big ones are more likely to get blown over in the wind because of the roots not being able to actually make it down past the lava layer. So what we do instead in Mountain View and most of Puna is build mounds. So you can't dig down, so you got to build up. Has anybody ever heard of a Hugelkultur?
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. So for any of you who don't know what that is, doing a garden bed with rotten decaying wood in the center of it. And what that does is that acts as a sponge for water. It'll absorb, and then when it's really dry, it'll release the water slowly back into the plants. But it also acts as a great fertilizer source because it's breaking down, it's releasing nitrogen and all of the other minerals, and it's basically acting as a fertilizer. When you do put chicken poop or some sort of fertilizer on top, the wood will actually help soak up that nitrogen, so that way it's not going to just immediately go down to the mountain. Because what we learned is after 10 inches of rain, that's all it takes to wash all of the nitrogen out of your soil, which we can get that in a day here sometimes. So what we tell people is to apply chicken poop or fertilizer less, but more often. And if you can, chime it when it's like less rainy, but then you're more likely to burn your plants. So we start, and the other bonus is that by putting the wood in the bottom, you're able to get that height of the mound without putting so much money into the dirt and the cinder. So it really is multifaceted as like the sponge, the fertilizer, but also cost saving. The more broken down, the better, because when you freshly cut a tree, it needs to absorb the nitrogen from its environment so that way it can start breaking down. So if you put a brand new freshly cut tree in the bottom of this, it's actually going to be absorbing the nitrogen away from the plant, which that's okay. It just means you have to fertilize a lot more heavily and more often. So the more broken down, the better. Ohia, I mean, this is like the best because it's such hard wood, so you're not going to have that plant going down. So you're not going to have quite as much of the breakdown happening as fast. So moving forward, we'll go into kind of the soil science part of things.
If you think about this wood, if you were to throw this wood on a fire, how much energy would come out of each log is substantial, right? It would burn for hours, create a lot of heat, light. So if you think about that energy, we're feeding that energy to the soil, to the bacteria and the fungi and other organisms that make the soil work. We're feeding them, and the fungi specifically have associations with the tree roots, and they exchange the mulch energy and nutrients from the mulch for sugars from the tree, right? So if you're feeding the fungi, if you're feeding the bacteria in the soil, you're feeding the tree, right? So also, as the mulch breaks down, it does raise the pH of the soil. So here we have quite acidic soils. The rain here is a pH of 5.5. So every time it rains, it's moving that pH closer to a 5.5, and it's raining all the time here. So as the mulch breaks down, it actually raises the pH a little bit. It buffers it, so it makes it change more slowly, so the rain isn't going to just drop the pH immediately. The mulch is actually buffering that. It also, we're providing drainage by building this mound again. So just piling this mulch up, we're going to add cinder soil. So one thing that we have really strongly suggest is using black cinder up here. And you can use, if you want to save money, we have used 100% black cinder in mulch. So you just cover this with black cinder, add more mulch. And what happens is the mulch breaks down and fills in the cracks between the cinder. It would be more fertile if you had maybe 30% to 50% Hamakua soil mixed in with the black cinder. Hamakua soil is high in potassium. It's a little, it's still fairly acidic, but it has a lot of water holding attributes. And then the black cinder is amazing because if you think about how new it is, it's like almost like ore, and it has to be kind of mined, right, to make those nutrients bioavailable. But at the same time, if you think about how constant the rain is, the erosion factor is here. The cinder almost makes that rain an asset because it's constantly eroding the cinder into soil. So we're building new soil here. But the most crucial thing about the cinder up here is not for drainage, but to fight against compaction. So if you use just local soil or just Hamakua soil up here, your soil will compact, and when it rains really heavily, it will become waterlogged, it will become anaerobic, and your tree roots need oxygen. Without oxygen, the tree is not going to be happy. So that's honestly the main thing you're fighting up here is the drainage and getting oxygen to those roots. If you look at black cinder, especially the larger kinds, I suggest getting the larger black cinder. There's little pukas in each rock from where the lava was exposed to air rapidly and cooled rapidly. Those pukas are amazing because even if we planted the tree and we stomped all over it and tried to pack it as much as we could never pack out those little pukas. So you're always going to have not only air bubbles, but little spots for bacteria to live in the soil.
If you put this right on the ground like this, then the fungus can only reach what is touching the ground. It cannot reach what's up in the air and dry. So when you cover this wood with the cinder soil, then that's making it so the mycelium can start breaking down the wood from all angles. And that's gonna just continue to feed the fungus network, because the thing that trees hate more than anything growing around it is grass. Because grass is a bacterial dominated environment, and what trees want is a fungal dominated environment. So you think about the forest, right? So the leaf layer and all of that stuff, if you pull the leaf layer aside in a forest, it's always got the white mycelium running through it. So what we'll do is we'll show you, we also put the wood on top of the dirt, and we do a stick mulch on top. So that way it's also going to give it the same sort of properties on top, and then you're just really feeding the fungus network.
So talking about choices of wood, I heard her talking about rotten wood versus fresh wood. So the other option you can do is you can pick woods that are high in nitrogen. So because we talked about the fungi and bacteria need nitrogen for the enzymes, just like we have enzymes that have proteins that break down our food. They also need nitrogen to make proteins, to make the enzymes to break down their food, right? So if we pick nitrogen fixing wood like albizia, ice cream bean, crotalaria, pigeon pea, that stuff's going to break down super fast. Albizia being the fastest because it's such a light, almost balsa wood. So those species, the nitrogen fixing species, are going to be more fungi friendly. Even the Mexican sunflower, which is super high in nitrogen, these leaves turn into soil in like a matter of weeks. And even these woody stems, you know, after the leaves are long gone, these woody stems are still there, suppressing weed growth, feeding the fungi, you know, fixing carbon. So stick mulch is actually really great to add in with your leaf mulch. Some people get really picky about, you know, they want their finely chipped mulch, but it actually breaks down fast, which is great, but then all of a sudden you have weeds popping through and it becomes a problem. So the other thing that we say is a need, not a want, besides the black cinder, is going to be some sort of lime. So we like to use dolomite ash to raise the pH. It also is calcium and magnesium. Our soils are, not only are they low in calcium and magnesium, but because of the acidity, it repels the calcium, potassium ions out of the soil, and so they get washed away. So not only when you add dolomite or coral, not only are you giving the tree calcium, which it needs for the structure of the tree, you're fixing the pH, which makes the manure and all the NPK around more efficiently absorbed by the tree. So that's really going to accelerate your plant growth, especially bananas. If you throw a handful of dolomite on your bananas every, you know, 3 or 4 months, you're going to see a huge difference in the leaf structure and how big the banana rack is.
We actually tell people to, every time you fertilize with chicken poop or some sort of fertilizer, go ahead and put dolomite with it, because when you do, that's going to make it so your plant can actually absorb the fertilizer better, because you're remedying the pH as you're fertilizing.
And if you happen to have used red cinder around a fruit tree and you're trying to fix that, we've heard that you can get a supplement called CalMag, and it's got elevated levels of magnesium, more than dolomite even, and apparently it will bond to the aluminum compounds in the red cinder and render them somewhat more inert and kind of nullify the negative effects of the red cinder.
Let's talk about that for a second. So people swear that what their plants want is red cinder to grow. It's actually the opposite. Black cinder is king. Like, red cinder inhibits plant growth. So it's great for pathways, driveways, things like that. But if you're using in your growing area, then it's really going to slow down the food forest. Like, every food forest that we've started in an area that, you know, they brought the red cinder in to level out the lot, it doesn't make it impossible. It just seriously slows down the growth. So your best attempt to dilute that red cinder is to just give it tons of mulch and the CalMag, like he was saying. We often go for the dolomite because it's cheaper. So that is like $26 or $28 for a 50-pound bag from Garden Exchange. The CalMag is more like a $70 bag. So what we do is we do most of the pHing with the dolomite and then add a little of the CalMag as more of a supplement, because if you guys know, like, most Americans are deficient in magnesium. So if you add magnesium to your plants, then you get to absorb more of the magnesium as well. General rule is 20 feet in between your fruit trees. But if you guys are going to be really on top of your pruning, then you can pack them in like 15 feet if you're going to do high density. But that means, like, you're really on top of your yearly pruning, especially if you're going to grow anything like an artocarpus, like a jackfruit, or any of those things. Anything that wants to be a gigantic tree, like an avocado, like, you're just going to want to prune them pretty regularly. Oh, we had a question before asking if it's good to plant in a low spot, and obviously if we had a different kind of lava, then that would be like the lava where it actually has cracks in it, then that would be fine. But because we're on Pahoehoe lava with very few cracks, planting in a low spot is usually where it's going to flood your tree out the most likely. So that's why it's like, you know, if this is the top of the hill and this is the bottom, a banana is good like at least halfway up, so that way it's still got that drainage, it's not going to waterlog, but it's also going to get all that rain that's washing down the slope, so it's going to be less likely to dry out. Versus an avocado has a 5-foot taproot, so you can have a fully mature, beautiful tree producing fruit, and it finally gets that 5-foot taproot. If it's sitting in water in the Pahoehoe, it'll kill your avocado tree, which is heartbreaking. So that's something to keep in mind, is that things like avocado or macnut, does that produce up here?
They do.
They
yeah,
do?
My cousin has one that
Awesome.
produces really well, actually.
Yeah, those are both things that like a lot of drainage, so you would want to put them at the top of the hill or just barely down a little bit.
So if we come in and do a consultation, one of the first things we look for is we prioritize the avocado of where it should go because it needs the most drainage out of any other plant, especially up here where it's really, really rainy. So the avocado is from Guatemala where the volcano slopes are like 45-degree angle. We've actually been there. You can't believe how steep they are. So think about how much like it's in a cloud forest, so it's getting tons of rain, but think about how much drainage it's getting. That's what we want to picture. So if you have a crack, if you have like a lava dome feature, if you have a bulldozed mound or excavated mound of stones, that's your place to put your avocado first. Jackfruit also likes good drainage, or if you're gonna try Chimpadek or something, that's also gonna want good drainage. Or if when you goes crazy and finds a mountain durian, same thing.
So yeah, basically know your species. It's worth taking like a 3-minute Google search to figure out what kind of environment it's used to in its home habitat, and just try to replicate that as much as possible.
If you can get your property ripped, it actually is a lot more fertile. It gives you a lot more drainage and surface area for the roots to access that lava rock. It just takes a couple years to like build the soil fertility back after ripping it. But the other option is if you have some sort of jackhammer apparatus, you can drill individual holes into the rock for each fruit tree, and that's actually going to increase the health of the fruit tree. It's going to make it more resistant to wind throw, because otherwise it's so shallow here. You got to think that a normal tree's taproot would be 20 feet into the ground, and that's just not happening here. So you really got to think about wind throw. So yeah, if you can drill a hole for your tree, it's going to be a bigger, happier, healthier, stronger tree. But if you can't, for whatever reason, be it money or whatnot, then making a mound and building the soil level up around the tree is your next best bet, and just keeping the tree from getting too large.
Oh, I wanted to ask, what is the exact chemical reason why red cinder is bad? Do you guys
It's
know?
high in aluminum.
Aluminum.
And aluminum is toxic to plants, and it's toxic to humans. So if you're eating out of stuff grown in the red cinder, then you're eating extra aluminum as well, which is like super neurotoxic. So the best thing you can do though is aluminum becomes more bioavailable the more acidic the soil is. So that's why adding the CalMag or at least dolomite is going to make the aluminum less bioavailable to the plant. While we're on that subject, another reason, we were talking about the soil pH and repelling ions. So phosphorus is especially low in the Hawaiian soils, and it is most bioavailable between a pH of 6 and 7. So you really want to be shooting for a pH of at least 6. 6 is fine. You can even do okay with 5.5. Most fruit trees like acidic environments, but in terms of the heavy metals, I would shoot for more like a 6. And the CalMag is going to be the best one for that. Dolomite's going to be the second best. Third best is going to be coral.
A little bit of borax actually changes the pH too.
And borax is good for plants too. Bananas like it.
For us and for arthritis.
Totally.
Alright, thanks for watching, you guys. That's it for us this week. Tell me in the comments below, what is a fruit that you are successfully growing that everyone told you would never produce? Tell us your elevation and your growing conditions in the comments below. If you guys wanted to get a hold of us for a consultation or excavator work and anything to do with food foresting, you can get a hold of us at foodforestfolks@gmail.com. You can find us at foodforestfolks on Facebook and Instagram. And lastly, we also have a website, which is www.foodforestfolks.com. Thanks guys, aloha!